Hi, everyone, and welcome back to 4 Weeks for Insights on Battery Recycling. I'm Veronika Wright, and today we're diving into what it really takes to build a business in the battery recycling industry from the ground up. Today, I have with me Ravi Gade. He has a background in business and entrepreneurship. A few years ago, he set his sights on the battery industry, and even though it wasn't his original field, he jumped in with both feet. He is now co-founder of Renewable and the founder of ES Technologies, two companies in the battery recycling space in the US and Canada, and he's also the VP of Business Strategy for Bridge Green Upcycle. I'm really excited to hear his experience and insights as a business founder in this field. Welcome, Ravi.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here. And it's a pleasure always talking to you about battery industry. I'm looking forward to this interview.
Awesome. So let's get right into it. What first drew you to battery recycling? I know your background wasn't initially in this space. Was there a specific moment or experience that made you want to jump into this industry? Essentially, why battery recycling?
Great question, Doctor. My background is business and entrepreneurship, not material science or engineering, but I have been always drawn to emerging technologies, mainly on the sustainability side and the market demand side. A few years ago, I started noticing this great push towards EVs and energy storage systems, and saw a huge gap in how we handle the batteries at the end of life. And that's what made me really to dive in. And to understand the industry, I started to going to every conference and, just talking with random people like battery manufacturers, policy makers, existing recyclers like, e-scrap recyclers, metal recyclers. And it was clear to me that battery recycling was straightforward, but, it's the reality is more complex. I sort of started my journey into this with a vision to learn as I go and adapt to the change.
Yes, and I am very lucky that I was one of the random people that you ran into at a conference. So we're
Exactly.
connected since then. I'm excited to follow your journey. In general, I think for many people outside of this industry, battery recycling, of course, seems like this obvious step for achieving a closed loop circular economy, getting the raw materials back to make new batteries. It sounds so perfect on the surface. But as you have discovered too, the reality is much more complex. What has that experience been like for you?
Doctor, when I first started, I thought battery recycling would be like, metal recycling, like, aluminum or, steel or, plastic recycling, just breaking it down, recovering the materials and reusing them. But I quickly realized the chemistry of the batteries is very complex. Batteries aren't uniform and, they vary by manufacturer and chemistry, the whole form factor and the whole problem of, handling them. The logistics part, because of the hazardous material, which is content in the battery, is very challenging. I sort of started to dive into, what are the different sort of recycling methods, how these materials and critical minerals are retrieved from, the black mass, which we produce through mechanical shredding. I started to dive into pyro, hydro, and direct recycling. What are the benefits, more like pros and cons of each. And one of the biggest movements was seeing how there was an insufficient supply chain in
Yes.
so much because very early on, I learned, how much is being exported, how much is being imported. And that's what pushed me to sort of focus on scalable solutions that maximize material recovery, Doctor. Like for anyone getting into this space, the most important thing is building relationships, Doctor. Just like you and me in this industry, the industry is still developing. So building the connections is sort of the main important thing. and understanding the entire life cycle.
I mean, you have really built a huge network. You have spoken to so many people, like everybody knows you in this industry. You're also in touch with like the solution providers, turnkey solution providers, equipment suppliers, I think all around the world. So I think you have a really good feeling what is the current status and what's missing. So from your perspective, and you have already mentioned some of the areas, but where do you see the biggest opportunities for businesses in battery recycling?
Right now, the battery recycling industry itself, there are some major gaps to be frank enough with you, Doctor. Mainly on the infrastructure side and the technology side and, the regulation side. And some of the bottlenecks I would really focus is the collection and transportation. You cannot treat batteries as, every other cargo use the same old methods to transport them. You have to really sort of use equipment and, material which are made to safely transport these batteries. And also the incoming inspection of the batteries, the state of health of the batteries, the state of condition of the batteries, and storing them, Doctor. You got to store them. If there is any sort of thermal runaway movement, it has to be contained, within a certain space so that it won't spread. And also sort of the material separation, Doctor, because shredding can be sort of a primary solution, but you have to do that in the right way. Like there is wet and dry shredding. And there has been numerous companies complaining me that the black mass coming out of the wet shred is not really high quality to recover any sort of critical minerals. And, when it comes to direct recycling, it's only good for, production scrap, and it's not good for end of life batteries. So the material recovery part of using pyro and hydro has their own pros and cons, and pyro is definitely not the way to go because of the temperature and the burning factor, included in that. And, there is a lot more work to do, direct and hydro methodologies, which could be the future of, battery recycling, mainly in terms of critical minerals extraction.
Yes. And your businesses are mostly focused now in the US and Canada, but you have been all over the place. So would you see regional differences between markets like Canada, US, Europe, Asia?
Absolutely. The US and Canada are really struggling to sort of, with the collection and, the processing capacity. Although there is a lot of talk in the market that, there are a lot of gigafactories are coming up, and, there is going to be a lot of production scrap available and stuff like that. Here is the factor, Doctor. A lot of gigafactories coming, they're only going to make LFP batteries. So, which has only lithium and a phosphate, and which is not economical for a battery recycler, right? So, those are some of the economics you have to take into account. And, Doctor, with the whole regulations aspect itself, we are taking regulations from the European Union, and, we are sort of changing them to our needs in North America. Asia has got its own because, China has a lot of dominance on this industry, and, they pretty much are controlling the world battery industry right now. It's an open fact. And we are just, catching up.
Catching up, yes.
Exactly, Doctor. And there is a lot more to catch up as we sort of move ahead in this industry, Doctor. And it's not a one-day solution. It's going to be a long-term play, and, we are going to adapt as we go.
I had several people call this industry the Wild West right now in the US, maybe even in Europe.
Yeah.
Where do you think it's headed in the next 5 to 10 years? When do we see a consolidation, or will there be a consolidation around a big few players that already exist? Is there room for many local recyclers? And also, you mentioned a little bit of the financial viability. Do you think recycling batteries can become a financial viable business on its own?
Absolutely, doctor. Mainly with the many innovations happening on AI and automation. Right now, if we take one main aspect of dismantling the batteries is completely sort of being done manual, mainly in North America, both in US and Canada. And that part is going to be completely automated in the next coming 5 years. A lot research has been promising, like what happened at Oak Ridge's lab, on the dismantling side of things, is coming, and AI is playing a key role in analyzing these batteries, how to deal with the dismantling process and the whole battery diagnosis part as well, the state of health and the state of condition. And direct recycling is actually been getting a lot of traction these days, doctor, mainly with the production scrap, right? You can literally recover active cathode and anode material from that. And a lot of localized recycling hubs are going to sort of being coming up, mainly mechanical shredding spots. And these spots are going to mainly process what is called a black mass. So now all the black mass which is being produced either with quality or no quality in North America is being exported to South Korea. So we will be able to sort of localize that and trade that within North America, and that's becoming a very, very a valuable product going into the future now.
You mentioned that direct recycling only works for production scrap and not for end-of-life batteries. Why is that?
With the production scrap, doctor, there are not many impurities, right? It's like a fresh dough before you actually bake the bread. So the cathode and anode material and everything which is coming through the production scrap is still active. It has never been used, it's a first grade. So you can directly retrieve them, and that material can be reused directly into new batteries. There is no real sense of impurities both on the metal side as well in the production scrap, because everything is treated differently up to that point. But when it comes to end of life process, like when we shred the end of life batteries, the black mass which we get has a lot of impurities, doctor. As you might know, you can extract electrolyte, but there are still a lot of chances that hydrogen peroxide can be formed in the black mass. Moisture content, doctor, which is the biggest downside where direct recycling cannot be used in end of life, doctor. Doesn't matter how you wanted to recover the critical minerals, you can't recover when there is a moisture content of more than 2% or so. It's always good to have lesser than that. So that's why I would say, in my experience, direct recycling works mainly on the production scrap and not on end of life.
Thank you. Now, let's try to bring this all together and talk about where you see the most innovation needed. So, either in business models in general or in process innovation, maybe even on the equipment side. What have you seen? I don't know if there was a moment where you would be like, oh my God, if we had this would be a game changer.
Well, I would say it has to happen in all the sectors, starting from, AI driven for sorting. What I have been sort of learning for the past few years is, if you can process one chemistry of batteries for recycling rather than mixing everything, don't mix LFP, NMC, NCA, all together and recycle. And don't process consumer electronics with, end of life electric vehicle batteries or energy storage system batteries. Try to process them in batches. In that way, you could avoid impurities, because if the product you are getting, either it is in metals recovery or black mass recovery or electrolyte recovery, if you have more impurities, then, it's no good for the further process of retrieving these critical minerals or, ferrous and non-ferrous materials. And I think the main model is going to change in terms of, pilot to commercial, doctor, because, we have seen in the last 3 years mainly, companies have, sort of had, being ambitious is not wrong, but, start of planning for overcapacity and, investing on billions of dollars into sort of equipment and stuff like that, which is continuously changing, in
Yes.
my opinion, has to be sort of bring back and sort of build up to the par, like, like if you are planning for a 2 ton per hour plant, try to plan for 1 ton hour plant, have a single line, and then, based on the supply and demand, add one more line, so that, you're not investing too much capital, and, you're not putting your investors at stake. So, that way, the business models are going to change, doctor, because until now, people sort of got a lot of money from, government agencies and stuff like that. But, with the recent new administration, there have been heartbreaks, in
Yes.
all sort of areas. And people started to think right now, how we could build the scalable technologies. And one critical thing which is going to happen, doctor, is going to be on the LFP side. A lot of research and development is going into that, because that's going to be one chemistry of batteries, in future is going to sort of um, uh, be across both on the EV side and the energy storage system side, doctor. So all the businesses, including recyclers and including manufacturers, has to adapt to that business model, and also in sort of automating solutions, doctor. Making the workplace safer and safer, because you're dealing with high energy batteries. You're dealing with electricity. You're dealing with heavy machinery. You're dealing with a lot of uncertainty things. So being a unregulated industry,
Yes.
if these regulations are going to come into place, you have to really be adaptable to the ongoing changes, and also sort of having local processings, doctor, like, in terms of not transporting these hazardous waste material to sort of, to long distances and stuff like that. Because in the past few years, we have seen a lot of
Yes.
accidents happening, containers blowing up on the highways, and, the highways has to be shut down. So, the whole industry is sort of looking towards how we can safely deal with this thing. And that's becoming more and more aware for the states, and mainly for the administrations, because it could cost lives, it could
Yes.
cost many other property damage and things like that. People are slowly sort of getting into that zone, where we have to be really, really careful while, we sort of transport these batteries. So it's the whole, each and every thing is going to change, doctor. And every company has to be adaptable. Otherwise, they are going to fall behind the
Yes.
race, doctor.
Yes.
And you have to adapt to solid state, sodium ion, zinc battery, whatever is coming in the future. So it's a very challenging industry, doctor. So, innovation has to be a continuous process in this.
Yes. We need people like you who take up this challenge.
Absolutely, doctor. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Ravi, for sharing your experience. I'm sure there will be follow-up questions for you, and I encourage everybody to reach out to you if they don't know you already.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you so much.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us for 4 weeks for insights on battery recycling. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn and electrificationacademy.com. And we're looking forward to seeing you at our launch on April 3rd. Bye.